Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Goud Crowd. I'm your host Goud, and you can like and share us and help us get the word out. Anyway, let's start the show. We got a hot show today. I think it's hot. It'll be fun. We'll start by talking about kill switches. Then we're going to talk about convention results. We had the Democrat state convention and the Republican state convention this weekend, so that should be really fun. After that, we will discuss. I had something else I want to talk about. Oh, why do employers want to hire foreigners over Americans? And maybe the better question is, when an employer says that they can't find an American to do the job, what do they mean? And I'm going to prove to you today that what they mean is they can't find an American to do that job at the low wage that they want to pay. And then finally, if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about data centers. But if we don't have time for the full conversation, we can continue it next week because there's been a lot of, actually today, there's been a lot of data center news in Utah. I think there was a hearing up in Box Elder County about a large data center campus there. And when I say large, I mean like huge. And then also there was one out in Duchesne County as well. So let's get started. We'll start with the kill switch issue. This has been a really interesting issue that's been kind of rumbling in the background, and it's out there, and I know it's been an issue in the CD3 race. I don't know if it's been an issue in the other in CD2, because in Utah, at least Blake Moore and Celeste Malloy voted to mandate a kill switch in vehicles. For some reason today, all over social media, this issue blew up. So I'm going to show you a video because I just want you to see this, and I can already tell that I'm going to have bandwidth issues. Hey, Mr. Producer, can I send this to you? God, this is so irritating. Okay, I'll send this to Mr. Producer. Do you think you can play that? Now, I had another thing. It's actually very annoying to me when I can't get stuff to work on here, even though I have like Google Fiber. So what do I need to do to make it so I can play videos, and that when I'm looking at the screen, my mouth is matching my words? If someone could tell me what that would be, that would be great. I'm not criticizing Mr. Producer. This is obviously like some weird tech issue that I do not understand. Okay, let me see. So, and there's a couple pieces to this. Number one is that under Biden's, what was it, like the Biden's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, they put in section 24220. Section 24220 includes this. Give me 1 second. I'll open this up so I can show you guys in a way that doesn't show you everything else on my screen. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I'll show you this. This is going to be untitled here. Okay. So if you look here, this is the legislation that's the issue. And so what it says is that they want to have advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology. The term advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology means a system that can passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. Now, passive in this case means it's not something that is physical to you, meaning you do not blow into a breathalyzer. Instead, it will... Oh, Mr. Producer says I need to restart my computer and turn off all my tabs. Okay. That's good advice. Okay, so let me just, and we'll play the other video in a minute, but so it needs technology that will be able to tell if you're drunk without actually you breathing into like a breathalyzer. So understand what that means is they're going to have AI in your vehicle and it'll be looking for signs of impairment. So your pupils are dilated, you're acting weird, erratic. Things, though, that could also be signs of other things that are not necessarily being drunk, right? And so I think that's kind of where the dispute is. Now, Representative Thomas Massey proposed an amendment to actually remove this section from Biden's Infrastructure and Jobs Act so that there would be no ability to implement this in vehicles. Because the problem is you're letting this AI make a decision about whether you are capable of driving a vehicle. And so if the AI makes an incorrect decision, let's just say it's an emergency and your eyes like your pupils are dilated, you're all excited, you're erratic, but it has nothing to do with you being impaired because you drank, you didn't do that. It's just that there's an emergency or something happens that gets you kind of riled up. The vehicle could misinterpret that as you being drunk and then not allow you to drive away when you actually need to drive. And there's no way to override that. Like, it's not like there's an appeal function or you may not even have time to override it. Like, that's the whole point, right? Let's say you're in a big wildfire and you need to drive out of there. Well, then you can't because the vehicle won't move. That's the problem with this. And that's why it's called a kill switch and people are trying to end it. So when Thomas Massey brought up this amendment, Celeste Malloy and Blake Moore both voted with all the Democrats, and I think it was 57 Republicans voted no on Thomas Massey's amendment, so it failed, showing us once again that I don't even know what the point of that House majority is. They get so little done, and they don't fix these like liberty issues that are really critical to the future. Because what happens is that some of the Republicans don't understand that even if it's properly implemented under President Trump, we are going to have a Democrat president at some point. And when that person wins, you better trust and believe that they will abuse this and they will completely and utterly just ruin, or they'll use this to control you and they'll shut down your vehicle remotely. They'll do it because they think you're too right wing. They don't like the things you said online. There's all sorts of reasons they could do it. All right. And so now let's play this video because I think it highlights it really well. Go ahead, Mr. Producer. And while you do that, I'll shut down my extra tabs. Then we need volume. You're having the same problems I was having. For those of you listening, if you're watching it, so this guy just, I think he used a chainsaw and sawed his arm off. No, just lost smithing. Great.
Come on! Oh no!
Oh no.
Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an accident, terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck. The truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift because it detects my eyes are big. There's a lot of emotions. It doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction. That is happening because Ford just filed the patents.
Well, think I lost you, Goud.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I got kicked out.
Yeah, there have been some glitches with this thing lately, and I'm not sure what's causing it. But you're in here twice now. It's like, really?
Can you take me
What the
out the
heck?
other time?
Hang on, let's see if I can dump this other one.
Okay, that was really funny. I was like, where am I?
There. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, actually, it's working
even
better
I was having trouble with that with the start of that video. But go ahead. Pick up where you left off.
Okay. So anyway, I hope that kind of highlighted to you the problems with the kill switch, right? And that is that if you have this technology that is evaluating you and trying to determine whether you're impaired, and it shuts down because it misreads what happens, it could put you in a very dangerous situation. And I think we have to be very aware of that, because that's a liberty issue. And it's like there's really, I would say everywhere in Utah, you need to have an actual vehicle to be able to get anywhere. So the idea that that's going to work is just, or that we can have a kill switch is just a bad idea. So like I said, so Celeste Malloy and Blake Moore both voted to keep that mandate in the law when they were given the opportunity to vote to remove it. And that should give you a sense of where they are on these individual liberty issues. They're not on your side because it's not just that, it's also FISA. They've, in the case of Celeste, I know for sure, and I'm sure Blake did too, they keep voting to extend FISA without adding a warrant requirement, which basically allows the government to rifle through all of your communications that they pick up. Now, they'll say they pick it up incidentally when they're surveilling the communications of foreigners, but they can design a search or, like a surveillance program that can capture your communications incidentally to someone else's if they want to target you. And they target people all the time. We know that. They targeted Trump. And so I've actually been surprised because he's one of the people that's been pushing for a clean, just a clean extension of FISA for 5 years. And he keeps saying it's essential, we need it. Well, okay, if it's essential, then you should be able to reform it to make it comply with the Constitution, right? I mean, we don't have to give up our rights in order for them to be able to have safety. Like, that's actually not how this works. You need to, if you think it's essential, reform it and then fix it and then pass it. That's what we're asking you to do. So, and if you notice, they're not doing that, and that's like a problem. Okay, now let me try, and I'm going to try to play this one. We'll see if this works. This is Celeste talking about the kill switch. Okay.
There was a bill about banning the kill switch on cars that authorities could shut off a person's car. The conservative members of Congress brought this forward. I was wondering what was in the bill that made you vote against it.
Okay, so it was an amendment to the appropriations bill. And the appropriations bill included a study of how to prevent drunk driving deaths. The amendment was
this is so
pull that
frustrating.
Study out of the bill, and because the fear was that if NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, was studying how to prevent drunk driving deaths, that they would come back and recommend a kill switch. The language in the appropriations bill specifically says passive means of preventing drunk driving deaths. So
okay.
a kill switch would have been in violation of that language anyway. And so I voted against the amendment. So I voted to keep.
If you open that screen and go to it, it'll run smoother.
Go do this, you mean?
Rather than having
the week after we had that vote, I was at Western Caucus sitting next to the head of NHTSA, and I told him I voted to keep the study in there, but I do not support a kill switch. If the study
okay, well,
comes back and recommends a kill switch, I will make sure there's no funding.
Okay. Can people still hear that when I'm not sharing it? Okay. So anyway, I went over the language earlier. When she says it said you have to have a passive means of preventing drunk driving. That's not what it says. It says you have to passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle and accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. Let me see. I'll pull the language back up if I can find it. 1 second here. Okay, here. I think, see, I'm not sure that, I don't know if she misunderstood this or she's lying. I mean, she's a politician, so it could be either one. Like, only she knows, I guess. Disagree Butter says, did she just say I voted for it before I voted against it? I mean, kind of. I think she said, I voted for it, but I'll vote against it if it does something else. But the problem is, I don't think she identifies properly what it does. So she says that it says it's a passive means of shutting down your vehicle, but that's not what the statute says. The statute actually says, and you can see it here, that they have to get advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology. The term means a system that can, 1, passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired. Like I just said, that means it's nothing physical. You're not blowing into a breathalyzer, but it's using AI to look at various ways that you react. So like your pupil size, are you acting erratic? Are you emotional? Things like this that could indicate that you're drunk. Although emotional, there are emotional drunks maybe. And then 2, prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. So it does not say it passively shut it down. It says shut it down. And so she misidentifies what was in the amendment and says something that is not accurate. So she did vote to to mandate a kill switch in vehicles starting, I think it's next year. Now I'll show you one more thing because Thomas Massey actually talked about this. I don't even think, if I'm honest with you, I don't think that they actually have the technology to do this. But the issue, like I said, is even if they don't have it by the time this thing starts, they will have it. You know, they already have tons of stuff that's inside they already have tons of stuff that's monitoring you in your car right now. So like adding this is really not that big of a deal from their perspective. But let's see if we can get this to work. I'll try again, although maybe I should send this to Mr. Producer, but let's see.
The chair recognizes a gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Chair, I rise in support of our amendment. This is co-sponsored by Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania and Mr.
When this screen is playing,
Roy from Texas.
go to
and I regret that we have to offer.
What?
When you're playing, go to that screen and not the studio screen. So that is full screen. So that is full screen on your device, and you're not looking at not quite that way. You got to open up that screen and stay on it after you fire it up. I mean, these are just little tricks. It should operate, and it's having trouble.
I don't understand what you're saying. Which one do you want me to hit? This?
Be on the screen and don't have the restream screen open. Stay on that tab.
I still don't know what you're saying, but
For this amendment, what I'm going to describe will probably sound like a bad.
like, what do you mean don't be on the restream?
Bad science fiction movie, but that's what's written into law.
On your
right now in law,
looking at that screen and not the restream tab.
You want me to? Why would it matter if I look at the other screen?
Because it'll play better that way. It's just a.
Okay, so you want me to look over here?
But don't display the restream screen. Display that screen, full screen on your browser.
You mean like this? This is very confusing, Mr. Producer.
Will,
Oh, you mean like that?
We'll talk about it.
Is it like this?
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. So
Well, I
Go
took
ahead.
myself off the screen.
go ahead and restart it.
Okay. There we go.
Roll 5 minutes. The chair recognizes a gentleman
No, you're not doing what I need you to do.
from Kentucky.
All right, I'm going to send it to you. Why don't
Mr.
you do
Chair,
it?
I rise in support of our amendment.
We can
This
try
is
that.
co-sponsored by Mr.
All right, I'll just send it to you because I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand why it just won't work. I have zero patience for this. Okay. Well, that was the final thing I was going to do on that. Are you going to have to like load it, or should I just keep moving? I don't know what happened.
Hang on, it's coming. Hang on.
Okay. After this, we'll talk about the Democrat results in CD1, which I think are interesting. One of the ones that is fascinating to me is this Eva Chavez Lopez thing, because I thought she was. Let's see. I thought she was like a real up and comer, and then last week, while Mr. Producer gets that, we'll skip ahead a little bit. But okay, I'll show you this. This article came out about, because I guess she's a lesbian, but not really one. And I thought this article, first of all, I recommend everybody read this article. Oh, you just pulled it off the screen. Are you ready? Yeah.
Mr. Massey and the member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes a gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Chair, I rise in support of our amendment. This is co-sponsored by Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania and Mr. Roy from Texas. And I regret that we have to offer this amendment. What I'm going to describe will probably sound like a bad science fiction movie, but that's what's written into law. Right now in law that's going to be implemented it says for 2026 and beyond. Now the reality is the technology doesn't exist, but that doesn't keep legislators from imagining things that they would like to infringe on civil liberties. But there's a law that states that every vehicle manufactured is going to have a kill switch in it. The car itself will monitor your driving. And if the car thinks that you're not doing a good job driving, it will disable itself. So the car dashboard becomes your judge, your jury, and your executioner. Imagine this. We've got a snowstorm coming. A mom takes her kids out. They're going to the grocery store. It's snowing. They're trying to get some groceries before the big storm hits. She swerves for a pothole. The neighbor's pet gets in the way, swerves for that. First responder goes by. She pulls over. Her car says, "You got one more swerve, and then we're going to ground you." There it is. The next thing she has to avoid, an icy patch in the road. The car has adjudicated her as unsuitable for driving. It disables the vehicle, and there she's. My question is, how do you appeal your sentence once your car, the technology car, has judged you to be incapable of driving? Once it's disabled you and your children at the side of the road, how do you appeal that? Do you press a button on the dashboard? Do you start talking to an AI?
Okay, so that was kind of what I wanted people to understand, is that Celeste Malloy, Blake Moore, both voted to require a kill switch in your vehicles. It'll start next year. Like I said, like Massey said, the technology isn't really there yet, but it's not a leap that we will have it soon. And that when a Democrat comes into office, it will be abused. 100% guaranteed. Just imagine like a January 6th type thing, right? They kind of gin up and have operators that go in and help kind of rile a crowd up. They cause this entire ruckus. And then they hunted down everybody that was a January 6th that they possibly could. And they abused a lot of them. They took them to a DC jail. They put them into the basement where there was black mold. They tortured these people. What they did was disgusting. They tortured people in their homes. They destroyed their lives. It is not a leap to think that they would also make it so you couldn't drive your vehicle. And so if some of you out there are just wanting to forget about the past because, oh, it's in the past, everyone's a good person. They're really not. There's a lot of very evil people that run this country, and they are looking for ways to abuse us. And so when there's a Republican majority in Congress, a Republican Senate majority, and a Republican president, I expect that they will take care of things so that when the next Democrat comes into power, I do not have to worry about being abused. Right now, as long as that law is in effect, it means that that will be implemented and that it will be abused by Democrats. So we have to start actually taking care of these important liberty issues, I'm just telling you right now, I think we're going to lose the midterms. I suspect that on the path we're on, we're going to lose the House and the Senate. I saw a town hall with Celeste Malloy and Jim Jordan, and their main argument for why they think they'll win the midterms is they'll say they're crazy and we're not. And I thought to myself, well, I get it, but I don't think that's going to win you the midterms because you've been in power and you've got to actually tell people what you did to help them. And it's got to be just beyond we passed tax cuts, because that's really their main argument. We did tax cuts. Well, I could get tax cuts under any Republican president. I didn't vote for Trump for just tax cuts. We got a mandate for fundamental change, and we didn't get the fundamental change. Anyway, so we're heading towards a bad thing. I just think that endangers 2028, and then that makes it more likely you get a Republican or a Democrat president, and then you're going to get all these abuses. So we need to get rid of that. I would just suggest that you don't vote for people that engage in that or that voted for that bill, which both of them are up for a primary. Okay, next thing is, so we had the two state conventions. The Democrat state convention, I think, turned out a little differently than what I expected, at least. I don't know what other people expected. I actually thought that Eva Chavez Lopez would have been more of a contender until this article came out. I think it was last week. And what it said is 4 people accuse Eva Chavez Lopez, a Salt Lake City council member, of unwanted sexual advances. Now, she's like a lesbian, I think, or maybe, although some of the language here indicates that she's not. I would just encourage everybody to read this because it is quite a read. It's like, she's like a man in a romance novel in this thing. And I'll read you one part, and then you can kind of, so one of the people that she allegedly made these unwanted advances towards is Victoria Petro, who's one of the city council members. I think that she's actually straight, unless I'm mistaken. And she actually has a kid. Victoria's a very nice lady. I've met her multiple times. Really pleasant person. So at the event, Petra alleges Lopez Chavez grabbed her by the throat, pushed me back against a pillar so that my back was against the wall, and told me the only reason I still F men is because a woman hasn't shown me what I really want. Petra said she froze, but remembers pushing Lopez Chavez's hand away and walking away. She said she told Pui, another council member, what she considered to be an assault. Pui confirmed she talked to him shortly after the party, and he said Petra was kind of shocked at what had happened. And there's 3 other women who tell similar stories, including Jennifer Plum being one. And then this one I thought was interesting. Was, I think, is it Nguyen? I'm not sure you say her name. So Nguyen says, and I just want to read this because I'll tell you something that someone told me. So Nguyen says that she left an event and then Lopez Chavez asked for a ride. After she drove a few blocks, Nguyen said Lopez Chavez told her to pull over, which she did, believing they had arrived at her car. Next thing I know, she had leaned over and she's on top of me, holding my shoulders down, Nguyen said in the interview. I said, what are you doing? And she said, kiss me, Nguyen said. She said, I'm not going to get off you until you kiss me. I gave her a peck and got off. Okay, I was going to tell you, a friend of mine told me that this is not the only time that this has happened between the two of them, and that they actually have a reputation for doing this at parties together. So just putting that out there for what it's worth, a rumor I heard. So it kind of sounds like there might be a little bit more going on here. But this completely knocked her out of contention for the CD1 race, which is why it's interesting, because she is actually somebody that a lot of Republicans in Utah like. They work with her because she's a little bit more, she's very lefty on immigration, but so are a lot of the Republicans in Utah. And she's actually moderate on some issues. And so most of the Republicans know her and they like her and they hang out with her. So here's what the results turned out to be at the Democrat convention, which I would have gone to, except but I was helping Phil this weekend, so because I wasn't a state delegate on the Republican side. But so what you saw is that they did ranked choice voting, and I'll tell you the disadvantage of ranked choice voting is that everybody gives their speeches, you rank the people, and then they go back and they'll eliminate the person with the least number of votes until they get to the last two. And that's what they did here. And it's at that last, I think it might be before the last round, where Libhan Mohammed actually overtook Ben McAdams and won the party nomination at their convention. So you can kind of see here, he starts out at 154. After Ava only gets, she only gets 13 votes, which is like it's a very rough. When she gets eliminated, he goes up to 161. Then Louis Villarreal gets eliminated. When he gets eliminated, Lipan keeps on picking up the votes. And then he ends up, I guess round 5, he ends up winning. So he gets 342 to Ben McAdams with 327. So now I saw some criticism online saying that the Republican voting took too long and that we should have used ranked choice voting. And I'll just tell you that it had nothing to do with how long it took people to actually vote. What they were referring to is during the CD3 race, after the first round, there was a huge delay. I think it was more than 2 hours. And I was one of the poll watchers for Phil's campaign. We had me, we had Natalie Clausen, Michael Clara, and Sophie Anderson. So the 4 of us were poll watchers for Phil, and we were up there. It took more than 2 hours. It had nothing to do with how long it took to vote. The voting was actually pretty quick. The issue was once we got up into the room, they had some sort of an issue with that race and trying to reconcile the results with the ballots, and it took them a long time to figure it out. And I'm not 100% sure that they actually got to 100% on that one. We just knew at that point that we were still there's going to be a second round because there were 4 candidates in the first round. The bottom 2 got eliminated, and then the second round just had Phil against Celeste. And so we were just, I think after like the 2 hours, there was no bathrooms up there. There's no food. And it might have been 2.5 hours. It was like a nothing. So we were like, oh, like everyone was like, get us out of here. I think we're not going to figure this out. Close enough. Let's go. So had nothing to do. Ranked choice voting wouldn't have made that faster. That was an actual problem because what they did is instead of just hand counting the ballots, which I think would have been faster than the scans in that case, they scanned all the ballots. And it seemed like a cool system because actually, I guess you can go and look. You can see all the ballots online now, and actually be able to look at them. So I kind of liked that aspect of it. But what I didn't understand why that first round took so long. And I think they lost people who probably left because we were standing out there. There's a window. We could see people leaving because the results hadn't come out yet. So just something to think about. Okay, so that's so CD1 is going to have a 4-way race, and I think it's Ben McAdams, Nate Bluin, I don't remember the third person, and then Libhan Mohammed. I know the most interesting thing about this, and it's actually Disagree Butter posted about it, is that Libhan is actually a smart guy. He actually figured out the rules, got a bunch of, his family's from Somalia. So he actually went and got a bunch of Somalis to show up. and wait so that they could become alternate delegates and fill spots for people who didn't show up. And so I know Disagree Butter has 100 here. I heard it was 50, but so I'm not sure exactly what the number was. I've heard both, but literally, I just think that's really impressive. So he understood the rules, he used the rules in his favor, and he won. So good for him. Great job. I will say that I think there's a couple of things here. One is that I agree with people that there's a lot of like calls to identity in this kind of a race, right? So if you walk in and you're a minority like this, and you just walk in with a bunch of people from the same country as your parents, it's not the best look. I mean, I don't know what you do with that, but it's definitely not the best look. I will say the other thing that's a little bit interesting here, and I think the Republicans have to be careful with this, is that if the reality is that Libhan was born in the U.S., he had, so he is an American, and I think we just have to be careful in terms of how you talk about this from that perspective. I mean, like, I don't want Muslim people immigrating to the U.S. at all, right? Because I think inherently Islam is anti-gay, and it's very dangerous for people like me because, it's part of their faith that they can kill gay people, and they do it all around the world. So I don't really want them coming here at all. But I kind of acknowledge that once they're here, not through anything that I've done, there's really nothing I can do about it. And so at that point, I think you have to kind of accept that they're going to be equal citizens. And so you're going to get situations like this. So that the actual answer here is to shut off the immigration in the first place, right? Like, and then also deport the people that are anti-American. Because these communities are full of people that hate America. So don't let them become citizens and deport them. But I think once they're actually, once you get people like Libhan, you can't. I mean, he has every right to run, and I think he ran. Far to his credit, he may get himself into Congress at the rate he's going. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Then next, well, let's talk about the Republican convention. Very exciting day, full day. I was there helping Phil. I know there were lots of excitement. I think that the races that really were drawing kind of the attention were the CD2 race with Blake Moore and Carrie Ann Lisenby, and then the CD3 race. The main contenders there are Phil Lyman and Celeste Malloy. And then the CD4 race just turned into a wipeout by Mike Kennedy. Unfortunate. That's what happened. Before we get there, let's just let's do a couple quick things. One is, if I criticize someone's outfit, I just want you to know that that is not the first time I've done that. So let me just show you this. Because, I am gay, so I tend to be a little catty on the how you dress part. But here's Lisa Sandberg wearing jorts, and I posted about it and said people should give her fashion advice. So I may do that today as we go through some of these races. And then let's first talk about SD 18. So I think a lot of you guys know I live in Riverton, so I'm in Senate District 18. That's where Dan McKay, Doug Fifia, and Tracy Halverson were running against each other for Dan McKay's seat, because Dan is actually the incumbent. So here are the results. If I can get for some reason now my computer doesn't want to work. What is the issue here? Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. So basically, I went and I watched the speeches for the first round. And I actually will tell you, I thought that Tracy had the best speech out of the three of them. Dan and Doug both talked about kind of their personal stories, how they ended up where they are today. But Tracy talked about voters. So, her basic point was like, look, they're talking about all this stuff, but do you actually feel represented? Do you feel like your taxes went down? I ran because people asked me to run because they feel like they're not being heard by elected officials. Those two guys over there are the exact same. I am the different one. Obviously, it didn't work. She ended up getting eliminated in the first round, although I'm glad that she ran. And so we ended up, this is the rounds of the first result. Doug got 44%, Dan got 35%, and then Tracy got 20%. So then you go to the second round, it ends up at Doug with 58% and Dan with 41%. So I guess, or 59 if you round up Doug's, and 41 for Dan. So basically, this is going to a primary. We'll see how this ends up going. It's an interesting race. I didn't stay for the second round speeches, so I don't know what they said that changed the results like this. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I will say that I'm gonna host Dan McKay's sign in my yard because I will be voting for him in that race. I know people probably think it's kind of weird because Dan has had some really bad votes, like, really bad decision making. So, I don't agree with his support for SB 54. I don't agree with his changing the flag, but I do think he can be responsive and he's approachable in a way that Doug is not. So, I mean, I can be convinced otherwise, and I'll also tell you that he did me a favor. Like I've said, that Sunny Washington was on the Salt Lake Community College's Board of Trustees. She is the one who actually came and contacted my employer and pressured them to fire me. And so when she was renominated to that position by Governor Cox, it was Dan McKay who contacted me, and I think he contacted other people too and publicized it, and he actually killed her renomination. And so I am thankful for that. It was I totally, if people are critical of me, I get it. It's something very personal to me, but it worried me that somebody that is that vindictive and willing to go after someone's job if they didn't agree with the trans agenda, I just wondered what she would be doing at that Salt Lake County Community College. And so I am glad she's gone. She should not be in any public office ever. But so that's why I'm going to support him in this race. Like I said, people can criticize me. I'm perfectly happy to hear it. Okay, let's go to the next thing here. So CD1, this was Riley, God, what is his name? Riley Owen against, okay. So it's Riley Owen against Dave Robinson. And I think there were two other guys. This race, it's unfortunate. It did go straight to, Riley won it, so there will not be a primary. I think that's unfortunate because I think in a race like this, you actually want a primary to get people excited because it is a blue district. And so if you want to be able to win, you have to get voters kind of excited. And one of the ways to do that is through a primary, through getting the Republican voters kind of riled up. Then you have lots of events and you're running around kind of competing. It gets people kind of talking. So the problem now is that between now and June 23rd, the Democrats will dominate the media environment and everything else. And then after that, they'll have the entire backing of the media. So this will be a very hard race to win. Now, I will say Dave, I think, was dealing with, I guess there was a whisper campaign that he's litigious and he is contentious. Some of that, I've talked about this before, it's very unfair. He was falsely accused of sexual harassment. And so he sued the people who falsely accused him, which included Amy Winder-Newton, Lori Stringham, Abby Evans, and there's a few other people. Derek Brown, I think, is in there. And then so he was defamed, so falsely accused of something. People think he's contentious because he filed a lawsuit trying to get justice. So to me, I think if you're worried about contention, you should actually go after the people that falsely accused him instead of the person that's actually trying to clear their name. And so I think he got caught up in that. And he talked about that in his speech. To me, he didn't need to be so defensive about it. I literally think he should have been like, look, they falsely accused me of sexual harassment. They defamed me. And when that happens, and if it happened to any of you, I would want you to go and to right that wrong. You have that right. And we should encourage people to exercise it. If your issue is with people being contentious, go after the people causing the contention, not the victims who are responding to being having contention directed at them. That's kind of how I look at it. So that's kind of that race, CD1. So CD1 will be Riley Owen against one of those 4 Democrats who are in the primary. I was listening to Todd Weiler's podcast today, and he is convinced it's going to be Ben McAdams. I think a lot of Republicans in Utah think that Democrats are very moderate, and we'll see how this primary goes. I'm not getting the feeling that they're moderate. So I think you might end up with Libhan Mohammed as the nominee, especially because he just showed you he has like a ground game, and all of those Somalis are going to go out and door knock for him. I'm convinced of it. So he'll have a whole army of people that want him in office. In fact, it won't just be Somalis. Just think about this. It'll be like most of the Muslim community in Utah will probably head into District 1 if they don't live there, because they probably live in Salt Lake County in this area, and they'll help him try to win that race. I mean, honestly, if you're thinking about kind of from the perspective of what they want, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be hard, I think, to overcome that kind of ground army. Okay, then let's see what I have next on here. That's CD1. CD2, Carrie Ann Lisenby ended up winning that with 61.5% of the vote. So we were talking about outfits a little bit earlier. I'll show you her outfit because I had some mixed feelings about this, but I think it was appropriate. Okay, here we go. I'll share this with you so you can look at it. We don't really need sound. Okay, we don't need sound. We just need to see her. Okay, so you can see her outfit. Here she goes. So like a white suit. There she goes, walking up to the thing. I guess my issue here was I just wondered if, because she has blonde hair, if she should have not worn a white suit. But I actually think it looks good. So it's a good look for her. It's clean, it's crisp. I like it. And she did a good job. I actually enjoyed her speech. So I'm glad she won with 61.5% of the vote. So she is the convention nominee for that race. But now she goes into the primary against Blake Moore. Mr. Producer says you're the fashion police. Correct. I'm not even sure I should really be the fashion police because I'm not sure that I'm the most fashionable person out there. But but I will show you this. I actually thought she should have. I like this a little bit better. I feel like she might have worn these pants before, but this I just thought looked so good. Hold on. I think this is the one. Okay, hold on. I'm pulling it up. Okay, here. Yes, okay. Although maybe this is what she was wearing for that, and but look at this. I just think this looks, I really like this look. Look at that. Like, I like how the pants are a little bit higher here with the high heels. Anyway, it's a good look. I think her team is doing her good in terms of her fashion choices. So for what that's worth, she's sufficiently well dressed. Now they'll still go to a primary because Blake Moore got signatures and he got the 7,000. I will say he made no effort at the convention at all. He had a booth. It was a small booth. If every other congressional candidate Disagree Butter says the king of plaid is commenting on fashion. Correct. When I run for office, I actually wear suits and stuff for the most part. So, I actually think if you're a guy and you're running for office, you should have very well-fitted suits that make you look good. No matter what your size is, you should get yourself a nice custom-made suit because it can even if you're bigger, you got big stomach, whatever. It can actually slim you down, make you look good. People like that. And so, but for women, it's harder because they actually, they have way more variation in what they can wear. And so I think you'll see sometimes it doesn't work. And so it is important, I think, that someone in your team can tell you that's not working. Please don't wear that. I have friends that'll tell me if something's not working. I once took a video, and I think I had gotten my head shaved for something. It was like shaved really short. And I showed it to my friend, and he was like, "This is a good video, except you look like you have cancer." And so, I was like, "Oh my God, like that's a weird thing to say." But then I thought to myself, I was like, "That's fair criticism. Like the lighting's bad. It's just making me look kind of like I'm not healthy." And so that's something to be aware of, right? Like you want to know these things. Anyway, that was my point. Whatever. Like I was saying, Blake made no effort at the convention at all. He had like a very small booth. Most of the congressional campaigns had big booths. They were giving away some sort of food. Blake had like a very small booth with like a soda station, which is a good touch, but really like it was no effort. I think I just want to point this out. There's a distinction between this race and the CD3 race. So in this race, you kind of have an establishment split right now. A lot of our state elected officials have now endorsed Carrie Ann. So this is a very different kind of race. It's kind of cool to see, actually. And I think a lot of this is anger over Prop 4. So, something about the redistricting has gotten people really worked up. I'm glad to see it. I wish some of that would translate into our legislature so they could maybe like impeach some of these judges that were involved. If we're not going to get that and they could at least knock out Blake Moore, that's fantastic. And I can tell you that the argument against Carrie Ann, because Todd Weiler was talking about it on his podcast today, is that Blake is in leadership. He's on the Ways and Means Committee. It's this kind of power stuff. But I really think, I hope that there's punishment for supporting an effort that ended up redistricting Utah. And actually, it's going to cause us major problems. Like, I'm not kidding about the problems we're going to have. Because of the new CD1, the National Democrats are about to pour in tons and tons of money into CD1. It will flip races. It's not just going to be that we flip a Congress seat. It's going to flip state legislative races, and it is likely going to have a long-term damage to the state. If you're a Republican, okay? If you're a Democrat, you're probably very happy about it. Oh, I think someone's trying to get added to the stream. Who is this? Is that you, Mr. Producer? Hello? Oh, okay. Okay, so just a couple other things here. Oh, I'll show you the thing what I mean about the elected officials. So here we go. I thought this was interesting. I know this is blowing up on social media right now, rightfully so. So here we go. Paul Miller posted this. As you can see, they're having a fundraiser and it's Governor Cox, John Curtis, and the Attorney General Derek Brown are holding a fundraiser for Celeste Malloy and Blake Moore. So you can get a sense of this is like your part of your establishment is 100% behind these two candidates. Notably, and I think what's interesting is it's $10,500 per candidate. I had posted asking how this is possible because it's $3,500 per race. We are past the convention, and so it's really only $7,000 now. $3,500 for the primary, $3,500 for the general election. But I got a message. I was kind of digging around, and one of my contacts told me that it's $10,500 because they've already donated this money before Friday, this last Friday. So before the convention, the fundraiser is just coming up Friday. So that's how they pulled that off. I will tell you what I would love to know. I want to know who's going to be at this fundraiser. I am wondering, will Utah's first gentleman be there? That is Troy Williams. Who else is going to be there? Are there going to be Democrats there? Right? Because these are two candidates that I believe are heavily, heavily supported by Democrats. So are there going to be Democrats there? I want to know. If you have any information, feel free to send it to me. I will share it. Now, another piece of this that I thought is kind of interesting, just a point of reference, is that Blake has really never done well at the conventions. So I think in 22, he didn't collect signatures in 22, and he almost lost. It was really close that he got below 40%. In 24, he actually ran against Paul Miller, and I don't think that Paul Miller probably spent as much or had this kind of support that Carrie Ann has from elected officials and the college Republicans and stuff. And he got 56% of the vote at convention. So Carrie Ann pushed it more than 5 points, about 5.5 points higher. But here she's got all this kind of support that I think hopefully can push her successfully through the primary. So just as we go forward, Blake Moore has $2 million in the bank, and Carrie Ann has about $150,000. I'm sorry, my stomach just growled very loud. So there's a big disparity in funding there, but I will say that I do, you just, I don't know what you do with $2 million, to be honest with you. Like, do you just flood people with social media all the time? It's like social media, or do you do something else? A little bit unclear to me. Okay, now let's talk CD3. That's the CD2 talk. CD3, this had a 4-way race, it looks like. It was a little bit unclear because initially we thought there would only be 2 or 3 because that David Harris, he's a retired general, got eliminated, I think because he's not actually Republican long enough. He was unaffiliated because he was in the military, is what he said. So before we get there, I'll just talk one thing. This House District 4, this is an interesting race. Chris Campbell is transgender. Chris transitioned to a man. And I talked to Chris after the race. And I will say this, and I've had breakfast with Chris before. Chris is actually kind of more of a libertarian type candidate, so I don't agree on the trans stuff. But Chris is not crazy, and I'm just going to use the name, so I don't want to be, I mean, I think she's still a woman, but she clearly doesn't. And so, so having said that, I do think Chris is kind of a libertarian candidate, and I appreciate that Chris ran because I think we need more choices, and it's kind of interesting when people like this run because you can just see like what they're trying to do and how that could impact the race. Now here, only 4 delegate votes came out of that. Hey, but that happens. There ain't nothing wrong. It's better to be the man in the arena than not a run at all. So props to Chris. Okay, CD3. So there's 2 rounds in this race. First round, the bottom 2 got eliminated. So it's Tyler Merced and David Harris. I don't think David Harris gave a speech. I think it was just Tyler Merced. So Celeste Malloy first got 515 votes, and Phil got 486. So it's basically 50 to 47%. So then they each gave, that's when I was talking earlier, it took like 2.5 hours. I'm not even kidding when I say this, to get results for this race. It was mind-blowingly annoying. It just took forever. I don't even think we got a full sense of the, like, I don't have full confidence that we actually got the real number at the end of this thing. But by that point, we were like, look, we're 100% going to a second round. I think Celeste's team thought they could actually push her over the 60% mark because going into this, she spent about 200 grand. She's mailed out 6 flyers, so 6 paper flyers to delegates. It's a lot. She texted people twice a week and she emailed people twice a week. So, and then she had events. So that's a lot to do. And this is where it ended up. Now she still won the convention vote, right? Fifth, by what, 17 votes on here. See, I'm telling you, the numbers aren't, I think this is the right number. So 17 votes is the difference. Because I thought I read in the paper is 18 votes. And so that's where we are right now. So we are in a primary. I just think like this is a lot of money to spend to end up with this result. And I will say this, the difference, again, this is what I was saying, the CD2 and CD3 is CD2, lots of institutional support for Carrie Ann. That is not the case for Phil's campaign. There's just a very different attitude from the establishment. They see Phil as a much bigger threat, and they are doing Oh, fair point. So Utah Politico says that's not really winning. If two people advance to the primary, then no one won. LOL. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I get what you're saying. I just meant more that she got more votes. but my point was very few more votes considering the amount of money that was spent. So she spent like $200,000 going into the convention. Phil spent less than $5. Just to give you a sense of like that spending disparity is huge, right? It's 40-1. And some of the establishment is touting this now, but I'm not really sure that it shows like super strength, right? But I do think that there'll be challenges going forward for sure. Now, I will say this. Some of this was really surprising to me. When I was there, I ran into Daniel Burton. If you've been paying attention to the whole saga with trying to get our grandma requests filled for what happened in the 2024 election with how the lieutenant governor's office cheated and stole that election because Governor Cox did not have 28,000 signatures. They knew it from the beginning, and they're still trying to cover it up. But Daniel Burton is actually has been really involved in that, and he was walking around wearing a Celeste Malloy hat. And this is my point. They support Celeste, the establishment. So the people, and with the cheating part, that's actually benefited her more than once in elections. So, and I'll just give you a sense of it. So the first time that Celeste ran, she was not even she didn't even live in Utah at the time, right? She lived in, yeah, my producer is going in and out of the show like there's no tomorrow. Okay. She actually lived in Northern Virginia at the time, and she had moved there in 2019. So, and they were about to take her voter record off of the voter rolls when she ended up filing to run. So her voter registration was inactive. Now I saw reporting, she keeps saying that she never voted in Virginia. But I will say I saw a post by Daryl Acumen where he said that she did vote in Virginia twice. Now, what I'd like for someone to do is to ask her to log into Virginia's voting system and to show us her record to see if she has or not. I don't think anyone's done that. I think that she has just said that she didn't, that she did not vote, and people just believed her because a lot of times I think the media just wants a particular answer, and so they don't push on the question. So here's Daniel Burton wearing his Celeste Malloy hat. So of course, he's supporting Celeste because she'll let them continue with the cheating. But anyway, that was the first example of cheating. If she's not a resident, they let her file, and then they let her go through the convention. They figure out later on she's not a resident, but then of course, as usual, we can't do anything about it. Compare that to when Phil named Lane Bangater as his lieutenant governor candidate. How did the lieutenant governor's office respond to that? Did they let Lane file? Nope. They stood at the door and they blocked him from filing, and they made it go to a lawsuit. And think about that, the difference in how they treated one person and another in the same situation. And I would actually argue that Lane Bangater probably has a stronger case for being a resident of Utah than Celeste ever has. Now, the second piece is that okay. She kind of squeaks by in that special election because that's just special convention in 2023. Then when she goes to in 24 and goes back up to run again, I don't think she expected it. So she didn't collect signatures. She didn't expect to have a competitive situation. So the fine Groyper says, I'm to the right of Phil, but I think he is the voice of the fight. No, I think that's right. I think he's actually, out of the candidates running, I think he's most in tune with the grassroots. So, and that, I hope grassroots understand that. But so the second time Celeste ran, she ends up in a primary with Colby Jenkins. And there's a couple things that happen. One is when they get into when the elections happen, and the clerk's offices have what's called a cure list. So if you turn in your mail ballot and you're signature on your ballot does not match the signature on record, they have to cure it. Under the law, the clerk's offices have discretion about whether to allow the candidates to have those cure lists. And so Salt Lake County, where Celeste won, gave their cure list. And I'm not saying Salt Lake County was cheating, just to be clear, because Salt Lake County always does that. That's something they do very well. They give it to candidates. Washington County, on the other hand, did not provide the cure list, and Celeste lost Washington County by 20 points. Those are the types of where the rules are not being applied evenly across the board. That results, it's like cheating by not having everyone follow the same rules, right? Discretion in that type of situation is actually a problem. The other thing is that then you also know about the ballots that were actually shipped to Vegas. So they were submitted on time into the mailboxes, shipped to Vegas, and then ended up getting postmarked after midnight, meaning they were postmarked late. I think under the code, they could have accepted those, and they chose not to. And I believe that if they would have counted those votes, Colby Jenkins would have won. So she's kind of benefited from an election shenanigans every time. And that's a problem, and that's why I think, though, the Attorney General's office supports her, because if you notice, she never says anything about any of those types of issues. She's not really rooted in Utah. She hasn't been a part of any of the fights that have been going on at all. She's always, what she'll do is if you ask her about them, she'll say, oh, it's a state issue. But the problem is, if you're not rooted in the state, how are you going to represent it effectively and understand the problems that people have and the things that we want to see fixed in order to make sure that our quality of life is increasing? I don't see it. Anyway, so this one, so overall, this is where we're at. We're going to primary. So Phil and Celeste are in a primary. There is a big fiscal disparity here, just like in the other race. This one, in their last FEC disclosures, Celeste raised over 500K, and at that time, Phil had not yet raised 5K. So I don't know if that's still the case. I don't think it is. But, as I said, there will be a financial disparity because Celeste is the incumbent. She's able to pull money from all over the country. Her friends in DC and Northern Virginia, where she actually lives, are giving her money. Her friends in California are also giving her money. And then the minority of the money is coming from Utah. So we'll see what happens in that race. I have this. I thought this was kind of interesting from Todd's show today. I oddly, even though I make fun of his show, I think I'm his #1 listener. I did see. Oh, speaking of which, I saw Todd Weiler this weekend. I didn't get to stop and say hi, but he was at Dan McKay's booth promoting him, which I didn't understand why Dan did that, because I think Todd's like pro the trans agenda, the worst. He's not even a Republican. And then also Kiera Birkland was at Dan McKay's booth. And I was like, oh, come on, Dan. Worst choice ever. She's a big old drama queen. She shouldn't even be here, because last time she was here, she falsely accused some old lady of harassing her daughter for wearing booty shorts to the convention, even though the lady was doing her daughter a favor. Okay, let me play this for you. Give me 1 second. Utah Politico says you are his only listener. I may be his only listener. They claim on the show, though, that they have a really big following in DC. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll take them at their word, I guess. Okay, let's listen to Todd.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I just continue to be. Epstein files. He had chemtrails.
Kinds of stuff. So
I think he worked in every possible conspiracy theory. He had Epstein files. He had Kim.
Oh my God, this is so irritating. Ugh, very annoying. I'm gonna tell you to break my computer. Hold on. gonna stop sharing for a second. Maybe if I download it. That is so annoying. I just wanted to hear one quick thing because I think it's funny. But I mean, Todd hates grassroots people. That's a fact. Utah Politico says, why would anyone in DC care about Utah state politicians? I don't know. You'd have to ask his listeners, especially because he really focuses on Utah issues. So I'm not 100% sure who.
Elections were stolen.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
I think I can play it now.
His elections were stolen and all different kinds of stuff. So that's
I think he worked in every possible conspiracy theory. He had Epstein files. He had.
Okay, here.
His elections were stolen and all different kinds of stuff. So that's
I think he worked in every possible conspiracy.
Wait, can you hear
theory.
that? Or am I playing the wrong thing?
He had
Hold on.
chemtrails.
I think I'm playing the right thing. Okay, hold on. Ugh, this is so annoying. No, I can't stop sharing. What is going on? Mr. Producer. All right, hold on. I'm gonna do this. Because I downloaded it, so now I think it'll be a little bit easier to do. Let's see. It's one of these, isn't it? Media player. Okay, here we go. Okay, ready? Now you'll be able to hear Todd in all his glory.
And all different kinds of stuff. So that's
I think he worked in every possible conspiracy theory. He had Epstein files. He had chemtrails, election,
Okay, that's all I wanted you to hear. So this is what I want to say about it because I think it's funny. Todd Weiler thinks that you can become transgender, that you can actually change your sex. He's passed multiple laws or been involved with opposing laws that try to stop the promotion of the trans agenda in Utah. So, and there is no bigger conspiracy theory in the entire world than the trans agenda. The notion that you can change your sex is the biggest bunch of hooey that the world has ever seen. So he can't spot the most obvious conspiracy theory the world has ever seen, but he thinks that these other things are conspiracy theories. So the Epstein files, I think some of the Epstein file stuff is a little bit of an op. So when a grown woman complains that she was sexually abused by Epstein and his friends, I'm kind of like, well, Utahns, I think sometimes can't understand this because most LDS people, they get married young, they stay with their spouse, they're not involved in all this stuff unless I guess they're swingers or something, which I've recently heard about. But if you live in big cities, what happened in the Epstein files when you have these grown women who go and they try to cozy up to these rich guys and they go to an island with them and do all sorts of stuff with a bunch of guys, that does not strike me as as problematic as the stuff about doing things with underage kids, which I have a problem with. So, but even if there's clearly something in there because they're hiding it, and I don't know why we can't have transparency. So let's say it is a conspiracy theory. Okay, well then just release it. Who cares? If it's fake, then we should be able to see it. But they don't want us to see it, which means that to me, at this point, there must be some truth to it. Chemtrails, that's a conspiracy theory. Okay, I don't know if that's true. I kind of think there's probably something to it. And then elections, that's not a conspiracy theory. I can tell you that it is definitive that the lieutenant governor stole the 2024 GOP primary. I have no doubt. There is evidence of it, even based on what we have right now, without them giving us everything. The reason why they won't give us everything is because it'll prove 100% definitively that they cheated. That's all that's about. So I find him exhausting. And that's why I don't think that Dan should have had him at his booth. I'm sure that actually hurt his re-election campaign. Okay. Now, finally, we had CD4, and that was Mike Kennedy. He blew this out. So he got 78.7% of the vote. And so he is the nominee. And I will be sticking with my point on this race. I won't be voting in it at all. So, and the reason is he proposed this new visa. It's the 2C visa, which is, I read about it. It is specifically aimed at importing people to take jobs that do not require a college degree. So it's H-1Bs for non-college degree jobs. I just can't vote for someone who supports this kind of stuff. I will say in a speech, he said that he is co-sponsoring the bill to pause the H-1B program, but I see that as political posturing so he gets reelected because he is a co-sponsor on this bill, and so I can't vote for that. I don't care what anyone tells me. I can't vote for it. That's a red line for me. So you're listening to and watching the Goud Crowd live on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, YouTube, Rumble, and our website, kmmu.org. Be sure to like, share, and hit the notification bell to subscribe. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to talk live, you can call in our hotline, 385-899-2134. So feel free to call in, and I will read all your comments as we're going through here. Oh, and then Define Groiper says, I'm on board, never Kennedy. I'm voting Dem. Oh, I won't do that, but I'm definitely not voting for Kennedy. I'm just going to leave it blank. That's kind of my view on this. Like, unfortunately, there are Republicans I won't vote for, and I haven't found a Democrat I would vote for in years. So, okay. Now, Mr. Producer wants you to know that my lonely call screener is waiting for your call. So if you can, so if you want to call in. He loves that. And when he says he's a call screener, I'm not really sure how much he screens the calls, but he'll find out what you want to talk about, I guess. Okay, now let's talk temporary visa programs. I want to start by dedicating this segment to Carson Jorgensen. So Carson used to be the state GOP chair. He was really bad at it, and he did a horrible job. And he had no money ever, because when I ran for county clerk, I went and I asked if he'd give me money from from the state party, and he told me no, that they didn't have money. And I was like, well, Salt Lake County is the most important county in the state, right? 1/3 of the population is here. This is where we actually need to be spending our money to flip races. Now, if you notice, all that the establishment does is they spend their money to get rid of conservatives. That's it. And then they spend their money on easy races. When there are difficult races, you'll suddenly find that all the resources will dry up. Now, we'll see if something changes this year. So hopefully, they'll give more funding to the district attorney candidate who's running. He seems very nice. And they'll give money to the sheriff's candidate who's running. It's I think his first name is Shane Manwaring. I always called him Sir. He was my commander in the Guard, but really good guy. And actually the district attorney candidate, the GOP candidate, is also really good. Kent Davis. They'd be great. So I hope that they have the resources. I just think the problem with the Republican Party historically has been that they don't focus enough on Salt Lake County and making sure that they are flipping races at every opportunity they have. They just don't do it. So anyway, he was a bad chair. He's a bad businessman, apparently. He can't run his sheep farm unless he's able to import cheap foreign labor to run it. So I just want to make this clear. As anyone who pays attention knows, I am against, first of all, I want an immigration moratorium completely. I am against any company, I don't care what business you're in, being allowed to import cheap foreign labor instead of hiring Americans. All that does is that it suppresses wages for Americans, and it destroys the ability of Americans to be able to find opportunities, to be able to get jobs, and to be able to have wages that go up and to be able to build a life. Everybody in Utah is always talking about how, we want young people to get married. And they'll say, just get married young and have kids. But then they don't fight for the policy issues that would actually help that happen. How do you tell people that are today 18, 19, 20, 14, 15, 16, hey, we want you to be able to go and build your own life, be able to find a spouse, be able to have lots of kids, to be able to buy a home. But we're going to allow foreigners to take all of the jobs that would help you do that. And that's the situation we're in right now. So my issue here is that we need to end all of them. Every single temporary visa program needs to be stopped. I'm just tired of this. And so the biggest focus had been H-1B visas, right? And so basically what happened is that Carson posted something about how he supports Celeste, and I responded. I said, look, why don't you be honest about it and tell people you support her? Because she specifically says she supports allowing sheep farmers to import H2C, or they do H2A, I think. H2. There's so many of these visas. They get to import foreign workers. And so I said, why don't you tell them that? And he said, oh, what do you mean, Goud? We can't run our businesses unless we do that. And I said, yes, you can. You just have to increase your wages. And then he said, well, Americans won't do these jobs. And I said, well, what you mean is Americans won't do these jobs at the low wages you want to pay, right? And so then what he did is he went to this group called the Utah Wool Growers Association, and they put out this huge statement about me saying that I said what they're doing. And by the way, I want to make this really clear. I'm not attacking all sheep farmers at all. In fact, I bet you most sheep farmers would rather hire Americans. But what happens is that if your competitors are using cheap foreign labor instead of hiring Americans, it hurts your ability to compete, right? Because then it basically gets a race to the bottom. If you live in Salt Lake County, you see this. Look at all the construction companies. They're full of foreigners, right? It's all foreign workers. And I've actually talked to people who said that there are construction companies that tell them, if you can't speak Spanish, then you can't work here, because now you have to be able to communicate with all our illegal workers. So like, you know, I guess I don't understand how that helps America. What is helpful about that? But also, it just means that the whole industry now is not open to Americans or to their ability to be able to make a living doing that job. And the wages are suppressed. And we have all these illegals and people here on temporary visas that are not Americans, that are actually like hurting our culture, hurting our national identity, so that people can have cheap labor. And I'll never support that. And so my point here, sorry, I got a little lost there. So if some construction companies are using the cheap labor, the ones that are only using American labor then end up at a disadvantage, because they will have to pay higher rates. They will have to deal with American workers, not in a bad way. If you're an American, you are entitled to have certain benefits, certain rights. You're entitled to think you should be able to get at least 2 weeks off a year. You're entitled to think that if you're a female, you should be able to get maternity leave. If you're a male, you should be able to get paternity leave, right? Like, these are things that we want to have people, give people access to, because what is the point of the economy? I'll just ask you that basic question, because a lot of times what people say is, well, importing cheap labor helps the economy. Okay, what is the point of the economy? I will tell you, the point to me is to make it so that Americans can provide for themselves and their families and be able to live the life that they want to live. Meaning this, there's a plurality of couples out there that say that once they have kids, they want to be able to have one parent stay home. They're not able to do that anymore. When we see all these two-parent households out there working, I don't think it's a choice. I think that they're being forced into that because of a system that is suppressing their wages and driving the cost of everything up, forcing both parents to work. And I want to add, I'm not saying that the man or the woman has to work. I don't really care. It's up to the couple, whatever works best for them. But the reality is, if we had a system where we weren't constantly importing workers to drive down wages, we would be able to make that a reality for way more couples in America. And I think we would be so much better off. Now, I have said repeatedly that it is my view that the reason why employers, when an employer says that they don't want to hire Americans, it's because they'll say it's because Americans don't want to do the job. But the reality is, what they mean and this is always the case, is Americans don't want to do the job at the low wage they want to pay. And this statement confirms it. So this is, now again, I'm not attacking the Utah Wool Growers Association. That's not really important, but they did put the statement out. So, the mistake they made here is, first of all, they attributed my comments to Phil, which is not, I don't speak for Phil unless I say I'm speaking for Phil as his lawyer, which right now I'm not. I'm speaking for Goud. I am Goud. So here's what, let me show you here what they said, because it confirmed exactly what I said. So they said, for many, well, first of all, here's what they say. Okay, so the claim that we hire compliant labor without dreams, I never said that. I didn't say that it's people without dreams. I said foreign labor is compliant. It's a cultural thing. When you import foreigners, they're more likely to be compliant to the employers, so they won't complain. They'll never they'll never ask for leave, things like that. That's why employers like them, and they'll work for less. So he says, is a political tactic that insults both the hardworking individuals who join our operations and the farmers and ranchers who feed America. Now, here's the thing. I actually think that food is a national security issue, right? And but if you believe that, then you actually shouldn't want Americans, or you shouldn't want foreigners doing that job, because they can import and bring in diseases that destroy your agricultural sector. We've already seen that in places. Like every week, if you're watching the news, you see a different report about a student from China who has imported some disease to come and attack some part of our agricultural system. So if you're a sheep farmer and you're importing labor from Peru, I don't know what their intentions are. They don't have any loyalty to our country. They could bring something with them to destroy your sheep herd and destroy other people's sheep herds. And so if we believe that national security is an actual issue, and that food security is part of national security, we shouldn't want foreigners working in our food industry at all. And I'll also say this, because we've had all these programs that allow farmers to import cheap labor, I think American farm operations are not being modernized the way they should, because they can be mechanized is one thing. Sheep farming might be different, because I think it's typically men that they take the sheep out into the mountains. They live out there with the sheep for I think for a few months on end. And that's a tough life. That's a totally tough life. But, but for something like that, you'd obviously have to pay somebody, because you're asking them to leave their family behind and to not remain there, right? So that's my point there. Now, what they say next is where I think this gets really interesting. So for many, the H-2A program is a dream. It's a dream. Consider the economic reality. In Peru, where many of our herders originate, the monthly minimum wage is roughly $275 to $300, with the average wage sitting between $5 and $650. In contrast, Utah ranchers are federally mandated to pay H-2A workers a monthly wage of $2,132.41. Furthermore, these herders have zero cost of living. Their housing, clothing, cell phones, and even their food, based on weekly grocery lists they submit themselves, are fully provided by the rancher. Okay, so they're paying $2,132 a month and 41 cents. I guess that 41 cents is kind of important. And they're comparing it to the minimum wage in Peru. Well, if you live in America, that's not really relevant. I don't care what people make in Peru. I'm an American. Everybody here is American. It does not matter what somebody makes in Peru. So I'll tell you, the mistake that was made here is that they said the monthly salary. Yeah, my point was correct. No American is going to agree to go and live with sheep for 6 months of the year in the mountains for $2,132 a month and 41 cents. Even if you give them a tent, free food, and a cell phone. Come on. That's not enough money. And then they say it gets better. By the numbers, An H2A herder earns roughly 7 times the minimum wage of their home country while having very little personal necessity, while having every personal necessity covered. Okay, if you paid them 7 times the minimum wage in America, I guarantee you'd have no problem finding Americans to do this job. No issue. If you're paying them 7 times the minimum wage in Peru, obviously you're not going to be able to find anybody. And what's interesting is Carson and I went back and forth, and I said to him, somebody said to me, they said, well, why don't you go get this job, Goud? You're like a city dweller. Why don't you go and take care of the sheep? And I was like, okay, but at $2,132.41, this is a 24/7 job when you're doing it. Like, you sleep with the sheep. So that works out to $3 an hour. I can make $20 an hour if I go to McDonald's. I'm a lawyer, so I can actually make more than that by doing my legal work. I'm obviously not going to do that job. But also, I wouldn't even be able to pay my mortgage with that monthly payment. When I said that, Carson responded and said, well, it's for people who don't have mortgages. Isn't that obvious? I mean, and I guess to me, I thought, well, so most of these sheep farmers, and again, I'm just talking about this because that's where the statement is from, they're in rural areas where people have big families. And I think all of these families are thinking to themselves, I want my kids to be able to stay in this community. I want them to be able to get married and to have 10 kids and to live down the street from me. And I guess I just wonder how that happens if this is the wage that's being paid by the biggest industry in the area. If the sheep farmers are going to pay $2,132.41, obviously none of the American kids that live in that community who can probably do the job are going to be able to do it. I'll just add that somebody responded to this post and said, oh, hey, I have a brother-in-law who wants to do this job. Let me see if I can find it. It's actually, I was like, wow, okay. Hold on, I'll see if I can find it in here. They may have, maybe they deleted it. Let's see. Doug, Tammy. No, I can't find it. But somebody actually responded and said, oh, well, I have a brother-in-law and he's interested in doing it because he's having trouble finding a job. Can you send me the listing? And they responded and said, oh, well, you have to have experience to do this job. So they want to pay you $2,132.41 a month for the job. And you also have to be experienced to do it. And by the way, I know people, I actually know gay guys who grew up in the country in Utah, ride horses, can actually do this work. They're not going to go do it now. Like, this is actually something that I think a lot of them would do if it paid better, but they can't do it. They're not going to do it now because it pays too little. They can make more money living out here and doing things in the economy out here. This is not enough money for an American to do this job. And that's my whole point with this. If we get rid of this program, what would happen is that the wages would rise for Americans. The people that live in that area would benefit more. A lot of times when you go to these small towns, what you find is that the ranchers actually do have a lot of money, and a lot of the townspeople don't. And it's because they're not able to take advantage of those opportunities on the ranches, because they're being taken by foreigners. Now, they deal with a lot of the downsides of it, because those same foreigners will live in the town, though there's more crime, there's these other issues that come along with it. And so that's my whole point here, is like, we need to end these programs. And this is just one example. Because if we did it, and let's say this job ends up paying $5,000 a month, plus these other benefits that they pay, that's fantastic. That actually makes it maybe something where people could actually live there, where children could stay closer to their parents and they could build their lives there, they could get married, they could have kids. And here's the other thing. You have to go for 6 months into the mountains with these sheep and herd them and feed them and whatever. It's no different than men in Alaska who go up to the North Slope, right, to go into the oil to work for the oil companies for a few months and then go back home into Anchorage and to the more livable parts of Alaska. And they do it because it pays a lot of money. And this is more akin to that kind of a job. Like if you're going to ask a man or a woman to leave their family for long periods of time, you have to pay for that. They're going to miss things, right? Let's say the guy, his wife just had a baby and he's going to be in the mountains for 6 months. He might miss that baby's first crawl, the baby's first smile. You have to compensate people for that. And the answer isn't to go and import people from Peru to do it. It's actually to pay more, to make Americans do this, and to treat food as a national security issue that actually needs to be handled with Americans, with people who are loyal to the country and don't have the motivation to destroy our agricultural industry. I believe that people like the sheep farmers and the I don't know if you call them cow farmers. You call them cow farmers? I'm not even sure what you call them. Are they ranchers, cow ranchers, beef ranchers? I think all these people are critical. We obviously need food. And by the way, I love lamb. And I believe lamb are baby sheep. So I only say it like that because I used to think they were baby goats, but I learned that's not true. But anyway, the point being is like these are jobs that should be done by Americans, and they would be if we actually had a market system where wages are determined by the market without constant importation of cheap labor to suppress wages in America. And then, like I said, just think about it. I know most of the people that listen to this are probably LDS on some level, and I know what you guys want. You have lots of kids. And by the way, I'm saying this as a positive, just so we're all clear. I'm not one of those anti-Mormon people. But you have lots of kids. You want your kids to live around you. You don't want them to have to move away for jobs. You want them to help build your community. You want your community to grow. You want your kids to have 5 kids, 10 kids. I've talked to you guys. And having opportunities like this would be a great way to make that happen. So if a place like Panguitch is surrounded by sheep farms, and now the sheep farms are paying $5,000 a month to be a sheep herder, well, more of the kids can stay there. They don't have to leave. That's the dream. That's what we should be doing. We got to stop allowing these people to fool us into thinking that the only way we can grow our economy is by importing cheap labor. That doesn't benefit Americans. So if the only way to grow the economy is in a way that doesn't benefit Americans, it's not worth it. The economy needs to grow to benefit Americans. And that is my point. We got a few comments here. Let's see. Mr. Producer says, anyone can be a shepherd. Little boys do it. No, that's actually a good point. Anyone can ride a horse. You can learn to be a shepherd in one season, but it's not for wimps, cowboys. No, I agree. I don't think it's for wimps. I do not think I'd want to do it. But I will say Cass actually grew up doing this kind of stuff. So I think he could go do it. Obviously, though, he's not going to do it at that pay rate. Even though at $2,132.41, they do give you a tent, free food, and a cell phone. Cell phones cost like $100 a month, so that's a big one. Celeste, so the fine Groiper says based, I guess, thank you. Nanny H says Celeste is supported by AIPAC. Okay. Disagree, Butter. What's the point of the economy? That's brilliant, man. Oh, thanks. Nanny H, I don't understand the delegate support for Celeste. She doesn't have an impressive track record and she's not an attractive candidate. It's a mystery to me how she got so many votes at the convention. Oh, I actually think she's very good at spinning her record. And I think that helps. And then remember, there's all this institutional support for her. So the establishment is fully behind her. And and you can see it. It's not just the ones you know. So if you're really in the political know, it's the ones that not everybody really knows about that are also pushing her very, very hard. And they're desperate because for them, I think Phil is the only threat out of the candidates that are running right now to this entire kind of the Utah operation that's going on right now. And so that's something that I think electing Phil to Congress actually helps to solve. It starts to fix the problem that we have in the state of establishment candidates who are undermining the state's culture and undermining its future, if I'm honest about it. And Disagree Better says, experience, here's the full training. Don't let the sheep walk away. You would think, right? Although I want to be fair about it. I didn't know there's more to it. Like, to Mr. Producer's point, you have to know how to ride a horse. I will just tell you, I went horseback riding once. I just find it terrifying. So you got to be someone that actually enjoys being on a giant animal that could, kick you off or whatever. And then, and living in a tent, I assume, for months on end. Although someone told me you might live in a camper. So whatever it is you're living in, you're not going to be with all your creature comforts necessarily. And then you have to cook for yourself. So they said they give you this grocery list, but they don't. It's not like there's a microwave. You actually have to cook your own food. So, I mean, I don't say that in a bad way. I just say it's not like it's all made for you. Okay. Anyway, that's my point on that. Again, no attack on sheep farmers, or specifically, my point was more about temporary visa programs, which I really, really think we need to stop. I don't know if we'll ever stop them, but that's the dream. Okay, so then let's talk about data centers. Okay, so there's been some news on data centers today. I have a couple of videos. Mr. Producer, maybe I should send you the videos, huh? Okay, let me hold on. I have this video. I think this is no, it's not a video. And I will just say, one more point on this is, I don't actually care that they attacked me. That's kind of a whatever. It's all good. I do think a lot of the establishment loves loves attacking me. It was kind of funny because I was like, you do realize I'm actually the product of immigration, right? So, but I still believe we need a immigration moratorium at this point, because my parents immigrated in '74. It is not 74 in America anymore. Today's America is way different, and we need a moratorium now. Okay, let me know when you have that one, Mr. Producer, and then I have a second one I'll send you to, because there were two hearings on data centers today. There was one in Duchesne County, and this Abnormal in Utah was at the hearing and took a video. And so we'll listen to the first comment from that video. I thought it was an excellent comment. I was so impressed. And then there was another, and the Duchesne one, according to what Abnormal said, totally was approved. And it's unfortunate. I'll just tell you, I think elected Republicans in the state are missing the ball on this thing, and they're probably it's gonna hurt them electorally. And then there was also a hearing in Box Elder County for another massive data center. And that one, the vote got postponed until next Monday because they had a huge turnout. I think they had 80 people in Box Elder County, but I'm going to say that's a lot of people because I don't think a lot of people live in Box Elder. Okay, here's Mr. Producer, you ready to play it?
You've got a huge new data center project, and it's in Utah.
Yep.
It's giant. Are you involved in it?
Yes, I am. I'm the master developer there. I've worked with Governor Cox, Speaker Schultz, President Lee, and many others, or President Adams, and Lee, Senator Lee. They get the joke. They know China is kicking our butts on creation of power. 10x. They're building more gigs than we are, 10 times more, and they're attaching data centers to it. We need a big campus, 40,000 acres in Utah, pipeline running right through it. We're going to build the largest data center in the world here, and because it's near a military site, I would argue the safest for DOW or for the Pentagon or whatever government agency wants it. But Utah gets it. They have the leadership. I met them 5 months ago, and we announced it Friday night. That's impossible to do. Nobody can do that. It usually takes 5 years. They got together, they worked it out, they made it attractive, and now all the hyperscalers are knocking on the door of Utah. Utah is the digital cavalry.
That's all good news.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Leary. Most people don't.
Okay, you can switch to the next video, Mr. Producer. All right, so I hope people listen to that. Our entire leadership here was meeting with this guy months ahead of time talking about a massive data center in Box Elder County. So, and I don't know that there was local input. We'll see in a minute. I actually don't think there was in that process until recently. I guess, Mr. Producer, let me know when you're ready with that one. I'm gonna. There's an article about this. I'll pull that up first. So the Trib actually has an article about that hyperscale data center he was just talking about. They had a meeting today, and 80 people showed up. Like I said, Box Elder is pretty low population, so I think that's a lot of people. And this is interesting though. The commissioners voted to delay a decision on giving final approval to the hyperscale data center campus and energy project. The thing that's so frustrating for us, for commissioners, is all of a sudden we brought this in the last hour and we're expected to hurry. Commissioner Chair Tyler Vincent said shortly before the 3 commissioners decided to table the decision. The next meeting to vote on the project was scheduled for next Monday, May 4th at 4 p.m. at the Box Elder County Fairgrounds Fine Arts Building to accommodate the crowd. The larger venue was chosen after some 80 people packed the commission chamber Monday, spilling out into the hallway. Some of those people carried signs reading, "Where's the research? People before profits and say no to data centers." After the vote to delay, cheers and applause broke out inside the chamber and from those gathered outside the room. Commissioner Lee Perry said the commission first learned about the project through rumors during the last legislative session before the state's Military Installation Development Authority presented it to them. To better understand the proposal, which MIDA created, was called the Stratos Project, Vincent said the county brought in an outside legal team. He did not say how much that helped cost the area's taxpayers. Let's see. Now, representing MIDA at the meeting, Project Area Director Hillary Venable said MIDA wants full transparency and apologized for how late county leaders were brought into discussions. We apologize and know that is not the MIDA way, Venable said. I mean, you literally didn't give them the information until like the last minute, and then you're saying it's not your way. Okay, whatever. Let's see. Here's a photo from it. And I just want to say this. This is an issue where elected Republicans are on the wrong side of it overwhelmingly. There's bipartisan opposition to data centers being put into communities across the country. And I believe Utah is on the wrong track on this. Data centers take up massive amounts of power, massive amounts of water. They create massive amounts of light pollution and noise pollution. They will destroy the quality of life. And they're trying to place them in rural areas because they're expecting there to be less opposition than, like, if they tried to put it in Riverton, I guarantee you, I and all my neighbors will be at that meeting to shut that down. So they go to these rural communities. I think they expect the commissioners to be less sophisticated, to be more pro-growth at any cost, and to desperately want to approve these projects. I don't know what we'll see in Box Elder County, but I will say that this could lead. It's hard to hear me. It's Mr. Producer, is it hard to hear me, or is it hard to hear the video? Oh, the video. Okay. Maybe then we won't play it. Well, so anyway, the point being is, like, these take up massive amounts of resources. They'll drive the cost of electricity up. We already have massive water shortages in the state. And it is weird. Like, we have, we're taking away farmers' water in the state and buying up their rights to fill up the Great Salt Lake. But then you want to go give, tons of water to a data center. And I've read some of these data center proposals, and they're not very specific in terms of how much water they'll use and how much electricity they'll use, how much noise pollution they'll create. There's not a lot of disclosure, and I just think it's a real problem. And I will just say this. I think that Republicans will lose elections over this if they don't get onto the right side of it. This is a quality of life issue that is really, really bipartisan. It's really, really specific. And here's the other thing is, there's not a lot of benefits to a data center. If someone can name a benefit to me, I'd love to hear it, but you're sucking all these resources out and you get like 10 jobs. And then really the way our system is set up, they'll probably import a bunch of H-1B visas to do the jobs anyway. So you won't even get the benefit of it. A bunch of foreigners will come into your community and take them. Okay. And then let me just make this point. So they have huge turnout at this meeting, right? And it says Monday's turnout was organized through messages shared in the days leading up to the meeting. Said Julie Quinlan, a Brigham City resident, describing it as a last-minute effort. So here's the thing. They're not even, I mean, these are low-budget grassroots efforts that are, I don't know what I'm, oh, are you showing your screen, Mr. Producer? These are low-budget grassroots efforts, and they're actually causing tons of people to come out. And the answer from elected officials, I think, needs to be more responsive to what their actual citizens want. Otherwise, like I said, we will lose more seats in places that you wouldn't expect it. Okay, Mr. Producer, go ahead and play this first comment.
County Commission, the Planning Commission, and the people of Duchesne County have a right to know just exactly what we are getting. For one thing, we don't know the size of the center. Everything depends on the size of that center. We don't know how big the solar farm is going to be, because we don't know how large the center is going to be. Will the solar farm generate heat? Will it cause an area to heat up hotter? How big of an area will it heat? We need to know these answers. I'm sure that there's plenty of natural gas for your generators, but we need to know how big these generators are, how many there's going to be, when they're planning on using these generators, if they are backup power, if they're supplemental power.
Okay, I think that's good, Mr. Producer.
We also need to know,
it is a little bit, it's kind of low volume. It is, if you want to go listen to the comments in there, it's worth a listen. I think what you'll find is that citizens are actually very educated. The questions she's asking are actually on point. You know, how much heat are your solar panels going to cause? How many solar panels are you going to put in? She later says you're going to have natural gas generators. How much pollution are they going to cause? When are you going to run them? Are they going to contribute to inversion issues? I mean, just fantastic questions. She says, how much culinary water is it going to use? You say that it won't use culinary water. You say it'll use production water. That's like something they have in Duchesne County. Those comments are from Duchesne County today. Will that work for their equipment? Can they have production water versus culinary water in it? Just phenomenal questions. And she goes into detail. And I just think elected Republicans in Utah are on the wrong side of the issue on this. And I'm hoping that they will get on the right side, because otherwise they'll cause losses at the local level. There's that woman that posted that video of the comments who was there. She said that one of the county commissioners who is up for re-election right now was actually sleeping during the hearing. So, and I know which one she's talking about because I met him. He's an older gentleman. And I'll just tell you this, like, he ran unopposed on the Republican side. If they have a Democrat, that's probably a seat that could get competitive real quick. So understand that I think once you start violating the certain things like your grassroots and these bipartisan grassroots issues that pop up, you could end up on the wrong side of it and you could help turn the state blue. Like I like I said, I just really hope Republicans get on the right side. Part of what needs to happen in this state generally is we need to have a government that stops preferring or giving preferences to some companies over others. I would rather us just have a, as low taxes as possible across the board. I actually think we should eliminate the income tax in the state. And if we can't do that, at least eliminate it for, under 200,000 in income or something to give relief to everyday people and small businesses. And then for big businesses, if you're going to have a business tax, you need to just have low taxes, a stable, easy to navigate regulatory environment that doesn't require tons and tons of lawyers and compliance staff and things like that. And then you need to stop trying to attract particular types of business to the state. You should let the economy grow organically. And what you'll find is that then no one industry will dominate. It'll just be, we'll have all sorts of different companies here. If you notice, like Florida has obviously like Disney World and stuff like that. But overall, you don't hear, if you read about it, you don't hear about particular types of businesses like really trying to get in there for different types of incentives. I don't think they give as many as Utah does. But Utah is very much into targeting businesses to come here. We want the tech industry. And, you know, you can see what that's done. It's brought in a bunch of leftists who now are turning the state blue. Now we want data centers. And normal people are asking, like, well, we don't have water. You told me I can't water my grass. You know, like, I want to, or how about this? I'm actually okay with my grass dying. Okay, fine, whatever. But I like to at least be able to water like my garden, right? Grow a few vegetables during the summer. It's kind of a nice thing to do. Have a few fruit trees. You're going to tell me I can't do that, but then you're going to have all sorts of data centers come in here and waste water for what? So that we can build a surveillance state or have a stupid chat bot? That's not worth it to me. You know, if China wants to build all the little data centers, okay, whatever, go for it. Fine. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if all these data centers will be built. I think some of this is a bubble because it's being encouraged by government in general. And when that stops, it'll probably all collapse. And then, you know, we'll have like a .com collapse, except it'll be a little bit different. And then maybe something will rise out of it. One of the theories I have heard is like, let's say Duchesne County approves this new data center, but it doesn't end up getting built. Well, they've just changed the classification on the land to a different use. And now somebody else controls the land. And so some of this is about land control. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of where I think some of this is going. It's not so much about building data centers, it's about land control. Okay, Nanny H says, sadly, our rhino politicians support Utah becoming blue because they are blue themselves. There's so much truth to that. You know, I forgot to tell you guys this. Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson did not show up to the Republican convention this weekend. And so it was my theory that perhaps they went to the Democrat convention because that is what they are. I don't know if Governor Cox would have gone to it though, like openly, or if he would have more likely just been like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna, or if he would have been in disguise, you know, wear a wig. Oh, maybe he was one of the Somalis, like wearing a burqa. Lieutenant Governor Henderson was too. She's actually like an undercover Somali voting for Libhan. Oh man, that would be a good video to make. Okay, well, I think we're just about at time here. So thank you for listening to the Goud Crowd. As always, it's a pleasure. I'm your host, Goud. We are on every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. at, let me read this out. I always forget. I can't remember this. Oh, on KMMU Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, YouTube, Rumble, and our website, kmmu.org. So be sure to like, share, and hit the notification bell to subscribe. You can also follow me on X in between. So that's at Goud, G-O-U-D, the number 4 Utah. That's where I'm the most active. And feel free to send me tips if you have tips. And if you have show topics that you want us to cover, feel free to send them. And I'll try to cover them. I can't always make guarantees just because, you know, sometimes I'm in my own little world or I just don't have time. But and maybe next week we'll get into more detail on Eva Chavez Lopez, because that story is just so juicy. I read it, and Cass was at my house, and I was reading it to him. I was like, "Listen to this. This is wild." Best story of the year. Okay. Anyway, Nanny H says, "Thanks, Goud. You are welcome. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Good night."